Here's a truth most people don't like to admit. Financial stress doesn't disappear when you make more money. It doesn't magically fade when you get a raise. It doesn't end when you finally feel stable. And it definitely doesn't stop just because you worked hard for years and did everything you were told to do. For most people, financial stress never really ends. It just changes its shape. And that's confusing because we're taught a very simple story about money. We're told that money problems are caused by not having enough money. So naturally, we believe the solution is to earn more. But real life doesn't follow that script. Because if earning more automatically created peace, then people with higher incomes would feel relaxed, secure, and calm. And many of them don't. They feel pressured. They feel trapped. They feel like one wrong move could undo everything. So what's really going on? To understand why financial stress never ends, we need to slow down and look at how money actually behaves in real human lives, not in spreadsheets, not in motivational posts, but in ordinary mornings, quiet nights, and small daily decisions. Let's start at the beginning. You wake up. You check your phone. Maybe you see a notification from your bank. For a brief moment, there's relief. You got paid. Your shoulders drop just a little. Your mind feels lighter. You tell yourself, okay, I'm good. But that feeling doesn't last long, because soon, reality steps back in. Rent is due. Groceries need restocking. Transportation costs money. Subscriptions you barely remember signing up for quietly drain your account. One by one, the numbers shrink, and the relief you felt just minutes ago is already fading. This is the first moment most people misunderstand. They think the problem is the money leaving too quickly, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is what happens next, because when the money goes down, your brain doesn't just notice the numbers. It starts asking questions. What if something unexpected happens? What if I get sick? What if my job changes? What if this isn't enough? Those questions don't feel dramatic, they feel practical. And that's why they're so powerful. So you respond the way responsible people respond. You work harder. You push a little more. You say yes more often. You stay late. You take on extra responsibility. And for a while it works. Your income goes up. And this is where you expect the stress to stop. But instead, something strange happens. Life quietly gets heavier. You don't notice it all at once. It happens in small, reasonable steps. You move to a safer area because it makes sense. You upgrade your phone because it's more reliable. You spend a bit more on food because your time matters now. You pay for convenience because you're tired. None of this feels irresponsible. It feels like progress. But every upgrade carries a cost, and not just a financial one. More expenses mean more obligations. More obligations mean less flexibility. Less flexibility means more pressure. So even though you earn more, you don't feel freer. You feel watched by your own lifestyle. This is the moment many people get confused. They look back and think, I should feel better than this. After all, they're doing better than before, but the stress is still there. Sometimes it's even louder. That's because financial stress doesn't come from how much you earn. It comes from how much you feel you must protect. When you had less, there was less to lose. When you have more, there's more at stake. That fear doesn't show up as panic. It shows up as constant alertness. You start living one step ahead of your money, always planning, always calculating, always preparing for something that hasn't happened yet. And slowly, without realizing it, you're running on a treadmill. You move, you sweat, you push, but the scenery never changes. Every time you speed up, the treadmill speeds up with you. This is where the idea of enough quietly disappears. When you were younger, you probably believed money was a finish line. You imagined a point where everything would finally settle, where you could relax.
But adulthood teaches a different lesson. There is always another level. A better apartment, a newer car, a more impressive lifestyle, a higher standard you didn't even know existed before. And society constantly reminds you of it. You open social media and see people doing more, living bigger, traveling further, seeming calmer. Even if you know those images aren't complete, they still affect you. They shift your internal baseline. What once felt like success now feels average. What once felt safe now feels fragile. And that gap between where you are and where you think you should be creates tension. That tension is financial stress, not because you're failing, but because the finish line keeps moving. At this point, many people reach for tools that promise relief: credit cards, payment plans, deferred costs. They tell themselves, "I'll deal with it later." And sometimes that works in the short term. But delayed stress doesn't disappear. It waits. It compounds. It silently stacks on top of itself until it feels heavier than before. Now you're not just managing money, you're managing anxiety about money. And here's where the stress becomes permanent, because it's no longer tied to a specific problem, it's tied to your identity. You become someone who is responsible, someone who must stay ahead, someone who cannot afford mistakes, someone who always needs to be prepared. That sounds admirable, but it's exhausting, especially for people in the middle. The middle class lives in a unique pressure zone. You're not struggling enough to receive help, but not comfortable enough to feel secure. You earn too much to complain, but not enough to relax. So you stay tense, always bracing, always aware that one unexpected event could shake everything. And over time, that tension becomes normal. You stop noticing how tight you are. You just call it adulthood. You call it being realistic. But then, something small happens. A quiet moment. Maybe you're lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling. The house is quiet. The world slows down. And your mind starts running. Not with dramatic fears, just small thoughts. Am I doing enough? What if this isn't sustainable? How long can I keep this up? This is the point where maybe people think they need a bigger solution. More income, a smarter strategy, another hustle. But this is where the real shift begins, because the stress you're feeling isn't asking for more money, it's asking for clarity. Financial stress never ends when your definition of safety is undefined. If enough is always somewhere in the future, you will always feel behind. The turning point comes when you realize something simple but uncomfortable. Control matters more than growth. Not control over every outcome, but control over your expectations. When you slow the treadmill, the weight feels lighter. When you stop chasing every upgrade, your mind finally breathes. This doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means choosing direction instead of speed. It means choosing what actually improves your life and what just adds noise. For many people, the biggest source of stress isn't money, it's uncertainty. And uncertainty thrives when your life is built on constant expansion. When everything must grow, nothing can rest. But when you define your version of enough, something shifts. Your decisions become quieter, your priorities become clearer, your fear loses some of its power. You stop reacting to money, you start leading it. This is why financial stress never ends for people who chase endlessly, but it loosens its grip when you stop running from it. Peace doesn't come from earning forever, it comes from alignment, from knowing what you're building towards, from understanding that safety isn't just about numbers, it's about flexibility, choice, and mental space. The moment you stop trying to outrun stress, it starts shrinking. Not because your life is perfect, but because your relationship with money is no longer based on fear. That's real financial growth. Not more, but better. And if this perspective helped you see money differently, stay here, because financial freedom doesn't start with hustle, it starts with understanding. And understanding changes everything.
Thanks for watching our video. Like and subscribe our channel for more informative videos. Don't forget to press the bell icon and get notification of new published videos.